Good morning, everybody. So last week before the break, I know a lot of y'all are working on your planning drawings for your Christmas ornaments. So what I wanted to do is to help you make sure that those things are done basically with your top level of craftsmanship, okay, as far as coloring and shading. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick shading video to show you techniques for getting smooth coloring, and then kind of go back over the lighting and shading again real quick. So this is going to be a quick video, but hopefully the couple of things I'm going to show you will help you with your technique for coloring and get you the best results. So this is just called Coloring Quality and Light Source. Okay, so this will help you with get your shading smooth, and then to apply that light source so you can show me the actual form of what you're making for the Christmas ornament, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my light source here. We're going to do a couple of little different objects, okay? And so I'm going to do a simple shape here. I'm going to do a cube. And these are good to practice with. If you want to go ahead and do it directly on your ornament, you can, but this is a kind of a simplified version of that, okay? So whenever we do the shading, just remember wherever the light source is hitting directly, so if it's overhead, that's going to be your lightest value. We're going to have 3 values here, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do completely white, but I'm going to do 3 values where I actually color on top of the object. And so as I color this, I would say the first thing for your coloring quality is to, as you go across the surface of the whole object with that top value, make sure that when you color, keep your pencil stroke together, okay? It's very easy to get into this. You get in a hurry, right? And then you start to get spacing between those stroke marks, and when you do, that creates a scratchy surface, and it keeps you from getting that nice smooth surface texture that you want to have, okay? So first thing is keep shading strokes together. Not spaced. Okay. And then the second thing is we want to make this smooth, because as you can see, I've actually got some white gapping between it, right? And what that is a lot of times when you shade on paper, if we looked at a piece of paper, like it looks like it's flat, right? But if we looked at it under a microscope, it would really kind of look like this. It'd almost be like terrain, because it's got what they call tooth, even though it seems soft. And so what happens is when you color across it one direction, you're kind of hitting the high spots. And so all these little white things right here, that's just where the paper may dip or doodle, right? And so what we want to do is we want to come on with the second direction of shading. And so if I'm going this way, you know, I could simply just go straight up and down, or I could go directly across the face, right? So I'm going to, right now, start to smooth this out. Now the thing is, you have to use real light pressure here, because any amount of pressure is going to darken your value quite a bit. Okay? And so as you do this, keep the pressure light, and you'll see it'll start to fill in those little white spaces. Now we're still going to have some, just because that's the nature of, you know, shading on the paper, but it's going to improve. It's going to get smoother. The other thing is keep your pencil real sharp, right? So if I got a pencil sharpener on me, okay? So the sharper the point on your pencil, the easier it is to go down into those little grooves in the paper. A fat, kind of dull end on your pencil, oh boy, it's not going to do that. And sometimes your pencil breaks in the pencil sharpener, right? So give me a second here. I can get back to where I needed to be. So yeah, keep your pencil sharp. All right, that nice little point on there That's pretty good. I'm gonna come over here and kind of flatten that out a little bit. Okay, so that's step one, right? And so as I continue to shade, so my next value, that's my light value, right? My next value is going to be here because the sun's got to kind of come around the corner to hit that, so that's going to be the middle value. This is going to be the dark value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go another direction, right? And I'm going to shade my middle value on this piece and this piece. As you can see, I'm getting some little gapping in there, okay? So I need to, this would be a good point where I could make sure my pencil's sharp. I got a good point on there. And you may not get it super duper perfect, but it's better than it being like that, right? Because we want these to be smooth. And so then I'm going to go right here and do the same thing. Now you may say, why are you shading at the same value? Because that's the darkest part of the cube, Mr. Seymour. And I'm going to say, well, I do that anyway because that middle value, right, is still under the darkest value. So I just, to keep it consistent, right, I just go ahead and shade it. And then I'm going to turn my paper and I'm going to go across the face of what I just did and see if I can get it to smooth out some more. Now, same thing, when you're doing this, don't get in a hurry. Even though you can't see it, just practice. Don't let the spacing get between your strokes, because if you do, you'll still get the gapping, okay? So that's looking pretty good there, all right? And then what I'm going to do here, so this is my darkest value, so all I'm going to do on here is put more pressure, right? And on your values, the main thing is make sure you can see the difference between the three values. That's called contrast. When you have that, it's the difference between the darks and the lights, right? And so if you don't put the correct amount of pressure, then they can be too close together. And if they get too close together, then it takes out a lot of the dimension that you're kind of trying to show here, right? And so I've kind of eased that in, right? And so what I want to do is I want to go ahead, I'm going to straighten this little edge anyway. I'm going to go ahead and go back across another direction with some more pressure. Now, I'm never coloring 100%, just because I like to build it up, and it allows me to have some control over what I'm doing. If you guys just go in there and thrash the thing, well, it's going to look like you thrashed it, okay? So take your time. You can see if I take my time too, it's just starting to get smoother. It's looking nicer, okay? So I got my three values in there, and that's looking pretty smooth. If you do something like that, that's going to be perfect for your ornament, okay? And the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a shadow, all right? And so a shadow is simply a reflection, but the dark version, right? And so it's this shape here, but as a silhouette. And so what I want to do is I'm going to bring my shadow lines the same direction that my light's shining, okay? And then just the main thing is on here, because this line is a reflection of that line, make sure it's parallel, okay? So whatever this line's doing here angle-wise, you'll want this one to do here angle-wise, because this edge is what's making the shape. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to shade that middle value. I'm not going to make the darkest value, and I'll explain that in a second. I'm going to make that middle value. I'm going to come back across it. Real light pressure, because I don't want to darken it too much. And then I'm going to fill in some spaces, okay? Now there is a fourth value I'm going to use here, and it's we talk about the core value, okay? So number 2 here is change directions when shading on top of previous shaded area. Okay, so that's that direction change. So now I'm going to add that, and this is just, I won't put the value notes here, this is just for smoothness, okay? And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create that darkest value. And so this is literally where I go in and put, this is why I don't go 100% on it, right? Because right here, what happens there is we don't want the cube to look like it's attached to the table. Even though it's touching the table, there's typically a little bit of space under it. And so what I do there is I save that darkest last value for that. Now, the way the light works, this would come out a little bit. And this is kind of more advanced shading here, but because as the light comes over the object, the shadow is going to get less dark because there's more light hitting it. So when it's next to the object, it's really dark. As it goes out here, it kind of fades away. And if you get that, you get more of a realistic looking shadow. Okay. Now, depending on the way the light's going, this actually may have gone, with this light going this way, the light is actually probably going more that way because I put that little nice edge right there to show it. But yeah, just make sure your shadow follows that. And then if you want to, you can come in here and, you can do some more stuff on here. But that's the two main things you need to know when you're shading is that keep those strokes together, right? Like that. And then when you come to make it smooth, come back across the opposite direction or another direction on top. And like I said, as you add value, you can do different directions on there. Okay? And so if you do that, you'll come up with a nice smooth shaded object, right? And just make sure you keep your lines kind of in order. These things should be a little more parallel to each other. Like you said, you get in a hurry, it's real easy to kind of fly through something and get some parts to where they're not accurate, right? But that's looking pretty good, okay? So I'm going to do one more thing here. And so this would be like, if you're shading frosting on your gingerbread man, or if you had an eyeball or something, right? So let's do a piece of frosting. So let's say that thing is a wiggly worm-looking frosting on your gingerbread man, right? So you just draw it like that. And what I'd say here is, you put your light source up above it, and then it's pretty easy. The opposite side of where the light is hitting, you're going to put some shading because that thing is round, all right? And then you can kind of smooth it out and blend it right there, all right? And then where it's sitting on the surface, because the light's not getting at the base of that, you would come in and you're going to put a little cast shadow right there. If you do that, it'll make the frosting look like it's up off the surface instead of a flat, We call this a form because it has dimension. But if you just do it, if you do the same thing like this, right? If you did that and just left it like that on a gingerbread man, well, it's a shape, right? It has no form. Shape is flat, right? So you want to have form because when you make these, they have form. And that's what you want to show people in your planning drawing. Hey, what am I doing? What colors am I using? Which part of the clay is carved into the surface? Which part of the clay is coming off the surface? That's important for you to communicate to people, okay? It'd be the same thing if you made an eyeball, right? So if I made an eyeball, like let's say that's my snowman's eyeball, or let's say that's just a cartoon eyeball, same thing, right? There's the light, opposite side, as it comes towards the light, it fades out. If it's sitting on a surface, opposite side of the light, right? That makes it look like it comes off the surface. If you were doing like a snowman who had like a rock, or charcoal for his buttons or whatever, I mean, this thing, it depends on what the rock's doing, right? It may have another side to it like that. So, you could come in and do your value like that. And then right here on the far side of it, right, it's going to have kind of that turn in it. And then I definitely want, where it's kind of going into on top of the face. I mean, depending on what the light's doing. If it's just sitting there, it's like that. But if the light's in the right direction, that shadow may come away from the object a little bit. And you can see that looks nice and round, right? It's 3D. So that's basically what you want to make sure when you create those final planning illustrations, that you're doing all of that and you're showing me the color that you want to use on the clay, right? For textures, if you're doing a gingerbread man, you can just basically kind of go on the surface and make some little marks in it, right? For a Christmas tree, show me surface texture, right? If it's frosting, it's smooth, right? If it's a reindeer, maybe it's hair that goes the direction that it needs to go, right? So texture is important too. If you're not sure what a texture looks like, I would say this is a big deal all the time for me. Look at photo references. Reference spelling, right? Because if this is a rock, I might come up here and put some dots in it, right? Even though it kind of looks like a meatball now, but that's okay. It gives it a surface texture. So those need to be communicated through your drawing, all right? If you go through that process, make sure all that stuff is in order, your illustration is going to look fantastic, okay? So good luck with that, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of y'all's illustrations. Thank you.